going to open the continued public meeting for site plan application for 21 Jungle Road, map 301, parcel 1, manufacturing. Just for the record, we have one member on the phone over there, our chair, John Souza. Do I have a representative? Mr. Hannigan?
How are you?
Good.
For the record, Bill Haney with Haney Engineering. I did put the site plan up on the board for viewing. The latest information that's come in relative to the project is more about traffic. And Jared Duval is here from TEC, the traffic engineering company on the project. So we did submit a letter just now. There were a couple of site items that were relative to that traffic report, but I think it's more pertinent to have Jared go through those traffic items that were raised by Vanessa in their peer review. So I'm gonna turn it over to Jared.
Great.
Come up front here, just. Thank you, Bill. As Bill stated, Jared Duval, TC, representing the applicant. So we had submitted a response letter, a response to comments that VAI, the town's peer, the city's peer review consultant, dated January 30th, 2024. Our letter dated February 1st. What I'll do is there was 5 comments, fairly, in terms of our opinion, fairly minor in nature. But what I can do is kind of walk through sort of high level what our response to those comments were. So as far as comment number one was concerned, VAI had identified that we should expand the limits of the traffic study, which we went ahead and did. So comment 1, we basically refer to comment number 3 essentially, because they're kind of one and the same, basically. So what we did was we expanded the analysis for the Route 117 Jungle Road north driveway intersection, and basically what it yielded through simulation modeling and looking at the Q analysis was there was no appreciable difference between the no build, the 2030 no build and 2030 build projections. And without getting really into the weeds on the output, essentially looking at weekday morning and weekday evening peak hours, the queue lengths did not change significantly. And the way this modeling works, it's essentially, you could do the modeling 3 different times and you get slightly different numbers. That's just the nature, it's inherent with this modeling software. What you'll see is just a few feet difference basically between the no build and build conditions. So essentially what that's saying is there's no marked difference with the inclusion of our project, or the applicant's project. Essentially, if it's only a few feet difference in queue length, it's not even the length of a passenger vehicle. So essentially we're not changing the queue lengths, even a passenger vehicle. Excuse me, yeah, so this is on the, I don't know if you have the queue diagrams handy. Those are figures A1 and figure A2. I'll call your attention to those. And so essentially, the analysis, there's an existing queue issue there that TC acknowledges, but the long and short of it is that from this analysis, there's no appreciable impact based on this project.
That's it.
At Jungle Road, yeah, thank you, Bill. Do you have any questions on that comment, or else you want me to run through the remainder?
Yeah, does anyone have any questions?
This is the second major project at this intersection we've had in 2 months, and everybody that comes in here says, don't worry, it's gonna have no appreciable impact on traffic, and I just don't know how that's possible. We're adding dozens, if not hundreds, of vehicle trips between these 2 projects together. Right now, because I just drove it, the light turn left from Jungle Road onto 117 accommodates 4 cars before it changes, that's it. And there's no way that that's not gonna back up further and create other problems. I just don't, I'm not an expert in the software, I'm not a traffic engineer, but since I drive that every day, I just find it hard to imagine that 2 large projects are gonna have no appreciable impact on traffic, which is already an intersection, the top 5% of crashes in the state, and already backed up in bad queuing sections, and I just don't understand how it's not gonna get worse.
Yeah, I think inherently the projections for this use are not typically, it's not a high traffic generator. And I think with the, based on the analysis, we projected at 150 cars per hour per direction, where the capacity for this road was something like 600 cars per hour, was projected. So again, between that and the queuing analysis, not acknowledging that there is a queuing issue there, again, based on this project alone and what it will contribute, that's what the simulation modeling is showing. And no doubt, and that kind of feeds in or segues to one of the other comments, you mentioned the high crash location and being Highway Safety Improvement Program funding eligible. The applicant is amenable to funding a road safety audit at this location, which would be a sizable investment, upwards, $15,000 or so, to perform this road safety audit. It would be really the first step in what we understand is a forthcoming TIP project at this location and through the corridor. Given the high crash designation, we feel that it would be, in terms of DOT's priority in the project review committee in scoring these projects, they'd look upon it very favorably. So that'd be a cost savings and time savings for the city. This road safety audit was funded by the applicant and performed as part of this effort. And that was per VAI's recommendation. So number 3, we had kind of touched on, going through queue lengths.
So the other, just one question.
Yep.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. So with the other findings that we had from the other bills going on, and you reviewed that traffic analysis, and also the changes they were going to attempt to do as well, did you incorporate any of that into your new modeling?
So my understanding is they're looking at, the other development is looking at the corridor, the Route 117 corridor, and the coordinated signal
left-hand turn as well.
system, right. So they're actually, in their effort, in the mitigation that they've committed to, they're actually incorporating our project as a specific, so any changes or signal timing changes that need to be made will already account for our project as well.
The turning radiuses, because they were gonna extend some of the turning radiuses at that intersection coming in, and then where you take the left onto Jungle Road.
I believe that was-
Have those
And there's
been
where we're looking at-
incorporated into it?
There's where we can get car trips, not trucks either, which is gonna change from yours, I assume.
I think what Jared is saying is that the information from this project was then added to their information, including the truck trips.
Okay.
So that their study's a little bit ahead of ours, okay? So, and I think that's part of the complexity of this project is the fact that there's 2 things going on at once per your point.
Right.
Other things that I think that from what I understand relative to the different reports that have been written over the years, is this corridor was designed for a much more intense traffic flow than it's receiving. Okay, so it's somewhat over-designed. I think that the idea was they thought a lot more traffic was gonna come down 117 naturally to get to 190. And a lot of that base traffic hasn't really happened, okay? So that's why one of the biggest things we all experience is get on 117, you hit a red light, you get through the red light, you hit another red light, you get through a red light, you hit another red light, because all the timings are off. And I think between the 2 projects, that's one of the biggest improvements that you're gonna see is that timing mechanism from Willard Street all the way to 190 is gonna be reassessed and reprogrammed essentially as part of this. I'm not sure which part of, I know that the 2 projects are working together essentially to work on this whole aspect of things. We're taking on one part, I think we're doing the road,
The RSA was recommended from VAI for mitigation for the 21 Jungle Road project. The number 10 Jungle Road project is taking on the coordinated signal,
With the,
And they were doing the striping.
with the state, right, through the state access,
and just to
That
take
would
into
cover process.
consideration the queuing lanes, even with their new design, if it happens from the other development, they'll be a lot shorter if we have trucks on them as well. So
Right,
was
so
that
that's
taken into consideration?
I think that's where it gets onto their side of it, because now, like I said, they're adding our trucks to their study. So
Yep.
their study, their queuing study may be a little bit ahead of ours because of the fact that we're not incorporating theirs, if I'm not mistaken, we're not incorporating theirs and ours, but they're incorporating ours and theirs, okay? It was just the way that the two projects fell as far as the application processes go. The other thing is that with the timing is gonna also start including better management of the traffic going out of Jungle Road too. So the queuing lengths, although they're short because of the fact that that's just the way it was designed originally, it may be that as part of the overall study that Mass DOT is gonna do on this, that configuration within the Jungle Road area may change to change the queuing lengths. But the actual striping of how the traffic is going based upon how traffic movements are actually performing today versus how they were anticipated 20 years
And the
ago.
striping is part of what the other applicant committed to.
Right.
And extending those islands and the turn lanes.
And going on to
Yeah.
Jungle, not all into Walnut.
Right.
Right. I think anyone who lives in this area knows that that's really what the problem is. Yeah.
Thank you, Bill, for clarifying there. Which may kind of segue into, well, I'll go through the comments and then I know there was some department comments as well. One of which kind of touches on that in the number 10 Jungle Road, their mitigation effort, particularly from the wire inspector. But moving on to number 4, response. We took a look at the suggestion of the AI in revising the intersection site distance calculations to accommodate I believe it was a single unit truck. And from that analysis, essentially, we were able to, the desired intersection site distance looking north from the site, were satisfactory or acceptable. We're still having a bit of in terms of the desired intersection site distance, looking south, it's kind of inherently because of the curvature of the road and some of the existing vegetation there. We're not getting that desired intersection site distance, but we are still maintaining the stopping site distance, which is the more critical controlling criteria there. We also, in light of the new analysis, it changes because we're using a truck template versus a passenger car, it changes the passenger height from 3.5 feet to 7.6 feet. So that may, in and of itself, help to alleviate some of those obstructions looking south, both in grade and in vegetation. In talking with the applicant, any vegetation clearing or grading that we can do along the front of our site to alleviate that issue is something that they're amenable to. And then in number 5, it touched again on the funding of the road safety audit, which again, the applicant is amenable to. However, it also noted in there was a comment about funding the design and implementation of quote unquote low cost or short-term improvements that are identified as part of that RSA. That is something that it's a big unknown, essentially, something that we cannot necessarily commit to at the forefront here before that RSA is conducted. These low-cost improvements, the definition of which is less than $10,000. At a high crash location such as this, you may get 40 to 50 or so identified low-cost, short-term improvements. So just being a big unknown, that's something that, especially if this intersection is also a TIP project is contemplated here. By the time you get through Mass DOT's design and implementation or their review process to implement these short-term, you could be talking a couple of years. And we suspect this TIP project would be, looked upon very favorably, especially if it's eligible for HSIP funding, where you'd probably be advancing a design on the TIP while you're still going through this review process with DOT. So it's kind of duplicating efforts there. So that, I think, answers most of the responses. I got a couple more notes here. So that's the basis. So again, the applicant summarizing our response, I think it was also VAI had noted in response number 5. I'll flip there now. Commitment to TDM elements as well, and that's something that the applicant is amenable to. As prescribed here in our letter dated February 1st, so providing employee orientation documentation, detailing information for available public transportation, bike and walking alternatives, and then also encouraging prospective tenants to offer specific amenities such as on-site, the microwave and refrigerator, cut down on trips to restaurants, things of that nature, dry cleaning services, all in an effort to reduce, the vehicle trips from the site. So I think that covers the response letter. We viewed that and we had coordinated and shared this information. I understand it's been shared with BAI. We've got no further comment after our response. We view it as a clean letter, hopefully. Hopefully the board agrees. I know there was some additional follow-up comment from various departments, starting with the police department, who had noted regarding the road safety audit that we coordinate with the 10 Jungle Road project. The road safety audit will be really a standalone effort for the number 21 Jungle Road site. That their mitigation, and this may have, I don't know if they're aware of the particular mitigation and what the number 10 Jungle Road site is tasked to do, but they're looking at the corridor, the traffic signal coordination and timing. The number 21 Jungle Road site would be tasked with that road safety audit. So we don't see, we're happy if Stonefield and the number 10 Jungle Road folks, if they want to be a party to or present at the road safety audit, certainly amenable to that. I don't believe there was any comment from fire, nor the health department. And then the wire inspector, we kind of touched on this a little before, had commented on the closed loop coordinated, the nature of the traffic signal system throughout the Route 117 area. And that's really, again, that's our understanding is the responsibility of Stonefield Development and number 10 Jungle Road, their project to be evaluating those. We're certainly amenable as, a condition of approval to do any sort of minor field changes. And I think that was commented on, I'm sorry if I didn't touch on that, was in VAI's letter within a certain period after occupancy. Let me just find that.
3 months.
Yes, thank you. That we'd be amenable to doing that. Really, it's gonna be at the discretion of Mass DOT. But we can go and do any field tweaks, as necessary, certainly to the subject intersection here of the RSA and any, upper downstream intersections if need be. And that's really looked upon as like general maintenance. So it's not something that would really be subject to DOT's sort of intensive review process. So I think that pretty much covers everything from a traffic standpoint. I'm happy, to the best of my ability, to answer any questions that you may have, or any questions.
Are we still planning to put the employee parking traffic off of Jungle Road? We still talking?
No, off of Old Mill.
I thought everything was moved on.
I mean, off of Old Mill, correct?
Yeah,
That's
yes.
what I meant, I'm sorry.
The top driveway is for employees. The
The
bottom
top
driveway,
right, and that's
the
as far
bottom
as it
driveway
goes.
for,
Trucking,
no, but the bottom driveway on Old Mill is gonna be gated.
Right.
And then the truck traffic will all enter in off of Jungle. Enter and exit off of Jungle.
that's what we asked.
So everything goes on.
So everything goes off,
Just the trucks,
no,
all the trucks.
Car parking traffic is off.
cars,
Car-
to the back lot,
Right.
it's off. Now, just want, is there any way we can stop the cross traffic? I've been doing that for years. Up into,
Well, this section of roadway is also around, the pavement itself is around 34 feet wide.
yeah,
So it's not like further down on
Right.
Old Mill where it narrows down.
Right. well, even before you get to that housing there, because people aren't gonna realize it narrows down if they're not from the area.
But people that are coming to this site for work wouldn't be necessarily traveling down, further down Old Mill.
They might be cutting over from Willard.
If they live here, they would have to know the shortcut.
That's the question.
Like me, but
What's happening here on this lane on the side of the building? It runs parallel to
That's
Melbourne.
more or less acting as a fire lane. So in December, resubmittal, if you remember correctly, we added the fire lane access and maneuverability sketches to that. So they could either come in on the north side, actually, I guess it technically is the west side, on the top of the plan, they can come in that driveway and go down, or they can come through the gate, go up and loop back around.
That entrance. Yeah. The trucks are coming down Jungle Road and taking the right, correct?
So when trailer trucks accidentally go up Mill Road and can't back up, they'll be doing a U-turn and going up down this fire
They're
road.
gonna have to do the
To get
U-turn,
to the
either in
overhead
the
doors.
condos or in their own parking
Oh,
lots.
they're never gonna get, I won't be able to get.
There's gonna be some signage there to direct trucks.
No, there's gonna
as
be
well.
signage, correct, that's already.
You know, that's gonna keep them from going past their driveway.
Right, that's on the plans, I believe, at this point in time.
I don't think that would be a problem. The address
Yeah,
is
just-
Jungle Road, they'll be on
yeah.
Jungle Road, I don't know why they get off of this. I think that should.
So they just, the far left of the drawing is where the trucks will be coming in, correct?
And going out, correct.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah, so we wanted to try to keep that off
Correct,
Old Mill.
right. The lower access to Old Mill is really for emergency purposes only.
That's good.
The upper one is for all pedestrian traffic, vehicles. Passenger vehicles, I should say.
I was trying to figure out what
Yeah.
a pedestrian vehicle was.
That's my Fred Flintstone, yeah.
Yes, pedestrian vehicles, yeah.
Back to foot power.
Alright, does the board have any?
Let's get back to vacation, I
Sure,
apologize.
I believe we have a
Welcome back.
representative here from Vanessa and Associates.
Let me make sure before we move on to the peer review, I just wanna, Mr. Hannigan, did you have anything else? Did you?
Yeah, there were some comments within the Vanessa letter that,
Okay,
that were specific more to the site. So the letter I submitted tonight, is addressing those items.
Okay.
I can go through that real quick if you'd like.
well, why don't we have Vanessa go first then, and then we'll have you respond to them, so that we'll have some context to it, but before that, so I just want to make sure, because we have a lot of, so in terms of the record, so Tech summarized their report,
We have a February 2nd, 2024 letter from Vanessa and Associates.
okay, and we'll get to, and they're going to present it now, so far in the record is this. I'll go through the department head comments, which frankly, Tech has done. I just wanna make sure everything gets in the record in anticipation if we're closing the hearing tonight.
Through the chair, I think it might make sense for me to just touch on these items, because it's one that's specific to traffic, which I think has been partly answered by Jared. So if you, then I think then at that point, Vanessa's review will be complete,
Okay,
instead of back and forth.
alright, so go ahead then.
Alright, so their first comment regarding the site was relative to site turning
This
analyses
is
for
February 5th letter.
an SU-30 vehicle, a WB-7 vehicle, and a fire truck. In our December submittal that we did, we provided information regarding all those turning movements through the parking court of the site with respect to the WB-67s, as well as the fire truck analysis through the main entrance of the employee parking lot along that side fire road, which is what the fire department had asked for. The model that we used for the truck was a 48-foot truck with a 23-foot wheelbase, which is the City Worcester model. Is what we typically use. It's one of the larger vehicles that are on the road relative to fire prevention. So that information may not have been available to Vanessa at the time. It may have been, I'm not really sure, I wasn't really involved at that point in time, Chris was dealing with all that stuff. But that information's already been submitted to the planning board, and we submitted it again as part of this letter here for review. So I believe that has been addressed. Relative to the SU-30 vehicles, I think the SU-30 vehicles, if these other vehicles can fit through the site, I think an SU-30 is not gonna have an issue, and there really aren't any SU-30 type deliveries to the employee parking area. You might get a UPS vehicle up there or a FedEx truck or something like that, but all the other truck traffic would be handled within the lower parking court. Okay, and then the remaining items were relative to centerline painting, a stop line being added at Jungle Road, making sure the signage was compliant with the MUTCD, if I'm saying that correctly, standards. And then one other one was the bike rack prior to occupancy, okay? So those items there would basically acknowledge, and that information would be added to the plan prior to construction, and we would ask that be made a condition of approval, just to update the final plan set for those smaller items. The bike rack's already shown in the plan, but that would be a separate condition, but they'd be adding the striping, adding the stop line and stuff like that, that would be part of the pre-construction documentation, that would be acceptable.
Would have any questions about or comments? Okay, representative from NS, thank you for your patience.
Sure. Scott Thornton with Vanessa Associates. We prepared the January 30th and the February 2nd letters. I thought Jared and Bill did a good job walking you through the comments and their responses. As far as what was in our February 2nd letter, it was really just a concurrence and review of the materials that had been provided. In terms of the the expansion study area, as Jared went through with the Walnut North driveway, the Q diagrams, the agreement or request to prepare the RSA. All of these items were agreed to by the applicant, included in their updated study. We found that they were generally in compliance with standard practice, so those comments were resolved. There was, as was mentioned, some discussion about site distance with a revised perspective of the truck exiting the truck court driveway. And it's understood that there's still a restriction or a limitation on site distance to the south, but we feel that there's adequate site distance to the north. There's adequate stopping site distance, which is really the critical point for site distance along roadways. So we think that that's not really an issue. In terms of the real items for mitigation and conditions for approval, as Jared mentioned, they agreed to fund the RSA for the Route 117 Jungle Road intersection. I think that's a good positive step to address safety there. And the implementation of the TDM program, we think that that's important to it's more for the employees, a way to get them to minimize their peak hour vehicle trip generation. And then the last item, the design and implementation of an optimal signal timing plan at 117 and Jungle Road. And as Jared and Bill were mentioning, that is proposed to be conducted within 3 months of getting the final CO for the project. And given that 10 Jungle Road is doing a lot of that redesign for the corridor, most as Jared was indicating, their project is already included in the 10 Jungle Road traffic analysis and would be included in their design. So that those improvements will account for the additional traffic. And they already have they have the trip projections, they have the truck percentages, so we would anticipate that any modifications that they're doing will address the vehicle type and vehicle makeup. And I think that's really it.
Does the board have any questions?
No? I just wanna make sure that everybody's on the same page with this and that you guys have been talking to each other and each project knows what the other's doing in terms of how we're gonna mitigate some of this. And it looks like it's happening, which is a good thing. Because we don't wanna end up with another Route 12 or Route 13 corridor issue. So, thank you.
Yeah, coordination is definitely key,
It
and
is.
that, you know, and with all the studies that are being done, like the RSA, as Jared mentioned, there's gonna be representatives from Mass DOT, there's gonna be representatives from the town there, there'll be representatives from this project and from, probably from 10 Jungle Road as well. So that's one thing, that's one way to improve coordination. But then also just the ongoing design efforts with Mass DOT. There should be a lot of eyes on this area.
Because I'm sure some changes will come up at certain times, but it only benefits the businesses to stay on top of them. Thank you.
Mr. Hannigan, anything else?
No, not for me.
Okay, so, for the record, we have the engineering corps, response. We have an email, from Tech as well on the department head comments, which let me go through quickly. And I know they've been touched upon. Police, approves the traffic information responses, to questions were acceptable. And Tech has responded to their request to confirm that they do not intend to turn the small driveway that runs parallel to Old Mill into a drive-through window. Fire approves without comments. Assessor's office approves. The plan conforms to the use of the area, commercial, industrial. Building approves. Conservation Commission has a hearing scheduled tomorrow?
I believe that that's been closed.
Oh, that was back in January.
Yeah.
I saw the email, okay. Wired, the responses to the concerns of, the Wire's concerns have been responded to. DPW is satisfied. Am I missing any planning? How about planning, the planning director, Elizabeth?
Yeah,
You had
for my
any-
memo of December 20th, most of my comments have been addressed. There were a few small items. I'm just going through my comments, I think most of them have been addressed. There were no waivers.
Was it a landscape architect waiver? That's usually typical.
It wasn't mentioned. Landscape. The revised plan set demonstrates that sections pertaining to landscaping have been met. The sidewalks were further modified in accordance with the police comments, so that got resolved. And peer review was conducted, so I have nothing outstanding.
Okay, great. Okay, so we have the comments of the department heads on the record, along with the responses, from Tech and from Hannigan Engineering. And we have also the February 2nd and January 30th, 2024, summaries from Van Ness and the responses and all of the department heads' responses via email, all on the record. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if there's no other, any other comments from the board? From the petitioner? So I'll open up to the audience now. Does anyone have any questions? Any comments with regard to 21 Jungle Road? Okay, hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the, let me, is John, muted
I
or
have
shut
no
off?
idea, I can't hear him right now.
Let me just ask one question before we go.
Yes, go ahead.
So there was some mention of small cost items that may need to be undertaken, but we can't know what those are until we get a little further down the road. Do we need to do
We
it?
just condition it as,
Well, but they're saying they can't commit to it because they don't know what they are.
oh,
And so,
minor,
6
minor
months.
field changes we
Maybe
talked
we
about. We
reevaluate.
discussed minor field changes. I thought that was part of our
That's two
discussion.
separate things, so.
And that we would make that a part of the
that's a separate
recommendation.
thing. So they're gonna do this road safety audit. And as a result of that and that will condition, but as a result of the road
Right.
safety audit.
Yep.
The recommendation was that they also address any low dollar, I forget what the terminology was, but low cost temporary improvements. And the commentary was, they're not opposed to that, but without knowing what they are, they can't agree to them, I'll weigh them, I wouldn't agree to something I didn't know what it was either. But I'm not sure how we handle that, because we closed the hearing, then that's the end of it. So are we willing to let that go and assume they won't make any temporary improvements? Or just leave it up to their judgment whether they need to be done, or do we wanna do something? And I'm not sure how to handle that, I'm just putting it out.
Yeah, well, cause if we don't close, if,
And then we'd have to wait for them to do the road safety audit and then
Right.
keep the project open, and I know that's not fair either.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I have a solution, I'm just putting it out there as something that concerns me.
Mr. Hannigan usually thinks he has a solution,
He
so.
usually does.
I just spoke with the applicant, he's willing to put a $10,000 cap on that number, just so that if there's, that we could pick out, there might be some that we can do and some that, if you can put a $10,000 cap on that, then that would go, and it might be that we use all
Yeah,
the
we
money.
can put that as a condition.
Yep.
How about, does that include minor field changes that might come up as well?
I think that's part of
That would
the,
be
that's part of the other stuff.
That's part of the other ones.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, okay, well, good.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer.
I don't know, but look, I mean,
It's a very generous offer, I don't know that we can do better, but I am somewhat uncomfortable without knowing what it is that we're actually dealing with, saying that we can accept anything without knowing what we're dealing with. And again, I'm not a traffic engineer, and I don't doubt any of the great work that all of you have done, but common sense tells me you can't put two giant projects in and have no appreciable effect on traffic, and it's not gonna make things worse, and I do worry that we're gonna need some stuff, and then we're like, I don't have a solution to it. Just
Right. The road safety audit will be, regardless of what
Yeah, and we're gonna
measures
condition.
are implemented afterwards, it's gonna be that first critical step as part of that larger TIP project development process.
Yep.
In which case, all of what comes out of that road safety audit will ultimately be addressed as part of that larger effort.
alright, we can make that a condition of approval.
And just one more thing, Paul, just for that road safety analysis is actually done prior to construction.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna kinda know some of the little improvements that we can make to help things out along the way,
Yeah,
okay?
it's good.
So you have a motion to close,
I do.
Jason has second? Okay. And we've had a discussion, any other discussion?
And John was still with us.
And
We
John
don't
is still with it, because we have to do a roll call vote.
We don't know. John,
I can't believe John.
unmute yourself. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna need you on a vote.
John, I hate to ask. John, do
Well, wait, not yet.
you have any
Maybe-
questions? Any
You have
questions, John?
No, I'm listening.
Wow.
Okay.
I think I get it all.
Alright, so we have a motion, and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor, roll call vote.
Patrick Perla, excused. Paul Weiser.
Yes.
Sal Chaconi.
Yes.
John Souza.
Yes.
Okay, you can mute again.
Tom Kerrigan, excused. Jason Parre.
Yes.
Dean Valier.
Yes.
Carol Vittorioso.
Yes. Okay, we'll get back to that later on in the agenda for the vote. Call to order.
Patrick Perla, excused. Paul Weiser.
Here.
Sal Chaconi.
Here.
John Souza.
Yes.
Tom Kerrigan, excused. Jason Parre.
Here.
Next to me.
Dean Valier.
Here.
Carol Vittorioso.
Here.
You're doing yourself.
Alright, 2.0, minutes from December 4th, 2023.
I move to accept the minutes of December 4th.
It looks good to me, it says Mr. Chaconi.
Okay, it says been
Instead
done,
of
okay,
minutes.
good.
That's good.
Motion made, second, to approve the minutes. All those in favor, roll call vote.
Patrick Perla, excused. Paul Weiser.
Aye.
Sal Chaconi.
Yes.
John Souza.
Yes.
Tom Kerrigan, excused. Jason Parre.
Yes.
Dean Valier.
Yes.
Carol Vittorioso.
Yes. 3.0 plans submitted, there are none at this meeting. 4.0 old business, and here we are at site plan application for 21 Jungle Road, map 301, parcel 1, manufacturing and warehousing.
Okay, so that's a
We gotta
motion
get
to,
all, we gotta get all the conditions.
yeah, I gotta get them all, and if I forget some, let me
And
know.
there's no request for waivers.
None.
There's
No waiver
waivers.
requests.
Okay, so a motion to approve with the following conditions. We were gonna do the $10,000 cap on any needed changes.
What was the terminology?
Yeah,
Road
what-
costs.
Road safety audit.
Road safety,
For short term,
short term,
Road cost, short-term
prior to
improvements.
road safety audit
And
results, right?
so that's condition 1.
full subject,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
following, yeah.
So it would be subject to the road safety audit with a cap on improvements not to exceed $10,000.
I like that.
I like
can use those
Can we say
words.
that one more time for the record?
I can't.
Subject, so the first, the condition is the road safety audit
Yes.
Subject to the
To a
approval
maximum cap
with a max cap of
10,000.
For lower costs,
Short term, yeah.
short-term improvements.
Now, the minor field
That's
changes
on
is
top.
part of the
Yes.
approval with the bike rack condition, right?
Bike rack.
racking,
That's already
the
on.
striping and the stop sign or stop lines, part of it. As conditions that they be completed. Okay, then we have the design, oh, wait, that's not the right page. Oh, it's. I put that piece of paper away. Condition of approval would be the RSA, right?
Yeah, we already said.
Fund the completion of the
That
RSA.
was the first one.
That's the first one.
Design implementation and optimal traffic signal timing and phasing plan for intersection 117 Jungle Road to be implemented within 3 months of the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the project, and subject to receipt of all necessary rights, permits, and approvals. That was from our traffic engineer. Right. And then implementing a TDM program is defined in the December 2023 TIA and expanded to include the additional items identified above. And that was the break room, the welcome packet, bike racks, walking alternatives. And they're all noted in the document. And those would be our conditions.
And
Anybody, I miss any?
staff would like to request that if we could have the consultant do a bullet point submittal of those conditions that pertain to, that he submitted for the record, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we have him right here actually, but yeah, that's good.
We typically do that, right? So-
Yeah, it helps.
Okay,
And then
sounds good.
department head comments are all addressed, so.
Yeah,
all addressed,
all
yes.
department head comments,
And then-
that's what we usually do.
We have to do something before they, what's our standard one now that they have to file due before we get them done?
Prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the planning director will review the conditions to ensure everything has been met.
Yeah,
Yes, I couldn't remember.
And that's my motion.
Excellent.
Second to the motion.
Well, you gotta have some help.
Paul
I
second,
can't remember.
Takes a village.
okay. Motion made with all the conditions
Okay.
as stated, second by Paul. All those in favor of the site plan, roll call vote, please.
Patrick Perla, excused. Paul Weiser.
Yes.
Sal Chaconi.
Yes.
John Souza.
Yes.
Tom Kerrigan, excused. Jason Parre.
Yes.
Dean Valier.
Yes.
Carol Vittorioso.
Yes,
Very good.
all right,
Thank you very much.
Let's
Sure,
build
good
a
luck.
good project here, let's do it right, jeez,
Good luck.
yeah, good luck. Good, some good
all right.
jobs, thank you guys.
Thank you.
New business,
Just wanted to-
none. Communications. 6.0, 6.1 City Council Petition 25-24 to amend the ordinance by inserting a new section regarding short-term rental units.
All city.
Mr. Angelini, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Director, members of the planning board. My name is Peter Angelini, 783 West Street, City of Leominster. I'm also Ward 5 City Councilor and Chairman of Legal Affairs, which brings me here this evening. I was asked to appear to, summarize the petition and certainly willing to answer any questions that the board may have. Madam Chair, do you have a particular way you'd like me to proceed? Okay,
No particular way you can give us some
overview and then perhaps,
background, yes.
fair enough.
Background, issues.
When it came up originally, our question was, what was the problem we were trying to solve with the petition?
All right, I'd be happy to address that. I was approached by constituents who brought this to my attention that the house next door to them was involved in a short-term rental business. So each weekend, there were a whole other group of people that were interested in having a great time, and so it became like a frat house on occasion. So I looked into it, I talked to the chief of police, I talked to other folks, and we really had no protection against this, which I consider a relatively new phenomenon. And in fact, I'm not an internet expert, so I asked these folks, how do you know it's a short-term rental? And they produced a document that they took off the internet where the place, this property is advertised, and they sort of highlight that it's close to Mount Wachusett. And so they, after 3 or 4 weekends of this, they approached the owner, and the owner told them that he is indeed renting it out on a short-term basis, but he's limiting it to 8 people per time, per rental. But the following weekend, it was advertised as a birthday party, it looked more like a bachelor party from what they told me. 31 cars were parked in the front yard. 4 in the morning, the police were summoned there. They were doing burnouts. There was other activity that you can imagine associated with that kind of an affair. So I started looking at other communities, how they handle it. Started doing research. So there are quite a few actually in Massachusetts that have already tackled this problem. I thought the most efficient and effective ordinance that was drafted was the city of Quincy. So I did take quite a bit of Quincy's ordinance and adopted it into this one that I call, it's actually identified as petition 25-24. And the only difference, one of the only differences is Quincy has a division of inspectional services, which was the go-to that sort of administered the short-term registry. Because Leominster lacks that department, the logical department was the building commissioner, office of the building commissioner. So that's who we assigned in this position. So what this petition intent is, the purpose of this section is to provide process through which certain dwelling units must be registered with the city of Leominster for use as short-term rental units consistent with the regulatory requirements prescribed within this section, and to set up a complaint process for violations and the provisions contained in this section. So the first page basically, I expect you all have the document. So the first page is basically definitions. But when we get into, I think what's most important, I think some people find confusing, we had a subcommittee meeting, one of the members of the council was concerned that this would deny college students the ability to rent a room. And of course, what this petition identifies as short-term rentals is a period of fewer than 31 consecutive calendar days. So certainly college students wouldn't be impacted because semesters significantly longer than 31 days. If you get to, on the second page, and it was, let me back up for a second. So some of the referrals I get back from other departments, I found really confusing because one in particular said that this is gonna open up the landscape and everyone's gonna be renting their home and we're gonna create a disaster, with just the opposite is intended. And on the second page, ineligible residential units. So the following residential dwellings or units are not eligible to be offered or rented as short-term rentals. Residential dwellings or portion of dwellings located in a Residence A district as defined by the City of Leominster zoning regulations as set forth in section 22-20 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Leominster. Residential units designated as below market rate or income restricted that are subject to affordability covenants or that are otherwise subject to housing or rental assistance under federal, state, or local laws. 3, residential units subject to any requirement of federal, state, or local law that prohibits the leasing or subleasing of the unit or use of the unit as a short-term rental. 4, residential units that are the subject of 2 or more findings of violations of this section within a 6-month period, or 3 or more violations of any municipal ordinance or state law or code related to excessive noise, improper disposal of trash, disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, or other similar conduct within a 12-month period. 5, a residential unit which is not the operator's primary residence, or a residential unit which is not located in a dwelling that includes the operator's primary residence. So then we go on, the ordinance goes on to, it would establish a short-term residential registry, and then we lay out the rules for that, where people would apply with the office of the building commissioner. The building commissioner would obtain input from the health department, police department, fire department to ensure that these units are safe for occupancy, just as we do with hotel units. The background with the police to see if there were any of these violations that were aforementioned that would prohibit someone from engaging in this activity. And then, of course, we talked about the background. Then we go on to penalties for failure for an operator to register the property. And then we have, of course, an appeal section. But what I think is really important here, because generally, as ward councils, we find out these problems exist after the fact. So if this ordinance is adopted, what it will do is, upon receiving the application from a prospective operator of a short-term residential unit, the Office of the Building Commissioner shall notify the local ward councilor of the application by electronic mail. Also, there is a notification of abutters. The operator shall, at least 30 days prior to the registration of a unit, provide written notice to abutters within 300 feet of a residential unit that such unit has been registered as a short-term rental. This notice shall be sent via certified mail, and a copy of the evidence of such mailing will be provided to the Office of the Building Commissioner. We also list parking requirements that I know have been an issue for this board on numerous occasions. And then, of course, penalties for offering ineligible units, the enforcement provision, which I can get into if anyone wants me to dig deeper into that. Then a list of the registration fees for different applications and how complaints are handled, complaint reviews, and the right to a hearing. Then a decision, how a decision is made by the building commissioner. And then, of course, last severability, if any portion of this is struck down in a court of competent jurisdiction, the rest will remain in effect. So I'd be happy to go back and answer any questions or try to handle any comments.
Do you think all points are covered to protect? I mean, it sounds like it, but.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to the chief of police, I mean, I think he proffered a referral to the planning board as well.
Yeah, there's a February 2nd email from Chief Kennedy.
Would you
A
read that?
February 2nd email from Chief Kennedy.
Is that gonna be read into the record?
If the chair
Oh, I'm
desires.
sorry.
Yeah, I have police, fire. Sorry, health and wire, but before I read them, just because I'm going to forget,
That's a different project.
I'm looking at,
Right.
thanks. Oh, okay, yes, I saw this one, all right, I'll read this into the record, then I have a couple of questions, one of which is related to this. The presence of Airbnb properties in Leominster has caused some concerns for the community, particularly in terms of disturbances outside drinking music concerts. Understandably, the residents feel frustrated and concerned about the impact on their quality of life. The Leominster Police is against Airbnb in the city of Leominster. We only have a few Airbnbs in the city of Leominster, but the calls and services have increased significantly. People staying at Airbnbs come from greater Boston area and have no local ties to our community. Upon further investigation, the owners are non-responsive in these cases. The planning board should understand that our residents have been the victims here. They also, they have been through a lot since last year with the loss of sleep and other issues. We should be thinking of them from the chief of police in the city of Leominster. So, but I get, my questions, Mr. Angelini, are, so I wanna make sure I understand, are you basically saying there's nothing in our ordinance now that provides for Airbnbs within the city of Leominster, so you want to implement something?
That's correct.
Okay, which is, okay, but I'm getting from the chief that he's opposed to them altogether, right?
Yeah.
He's saying he's opposed to them altogether, but I don't understand what, cause any homeowner could have outside drinking, music, concerts, and disturbances. I don't know how many phone calls he's received, where they've come from, and I don't know how he knows they're from the greater Boston area. So that's the concern I have with the chief of police email, because it's kind of like broad and kind of a sweeping generalization, because that could happen every weekend out of the same house. Or out of several houses, and the owners are the ones who are causing that. So I don't know how he knows about this in particular. Now, if you're trying to implement something within the ordinance, that is something I would consider if we don't have it. I was looking, when I'm on my phone, I'm actually looking at the ordinance, I'm not doing something else. So the only thing I can see in there that's close to it is like rooming houses, but that's like when you don't have a like it specifically says no kitchen. So obviously, someone's coming in and renting out a house at 123 Main Street in Leominster that's owned by John Jones. So that's a different situation. So we'd have to put in a definition of Airbnb, which I think you're proposing, and then certain,
Guidelines, rules.
criteria and qualifications.
That they have to meet.
So I just wanna make sure I understand the whole picture of what you're trying to do.
And again, some folks get confused with a bed and breakfast, right? So the difference obviously is you and your spouse wanna make a reservation at a bed and breakfast, you show up there, but if 30 of your friends show up with sleeping bags, the B&B owners are there and they say, hey, wait a minute. But at these residential rentals, you know, it's a free-for-all. People show up and it's out of control, and then the only ability the neighbors have to try to control it is to contact the police. The police show up, they're very limited because we don't have an ordinance to address it. So all they can do is say, keep the noise down, you know, and they go talk to the complainant, and they're very frustrated that it's gonna happen the next weekend, the same thing. So that's sort of, and again, I was naive to all this, to be quite frank. And right now, there are two residential homes in Residence A that are being advertised for this purpose.
Yeah.
I know that the fire department, and I think that you fully mentioned it, they've had some recent fires where they've, I think, uncovered some living conditions that were questionable.
And the Airbnb units.
Well, no, this
Well,
is,
just units.
yeah, just, but, with, a number of people not related, living in this apartment building, and so, there was a couple of those in the last couple of months. So the fire department, I know, was on board with this too. So I was, felt compelled to bring forward this ordinance to try to address this issue and give these poor people that are being terrorized, for lack of a better word, a little bit of hope.
May I ask in another direction if you're done with this one?
Yes, I just wanted to understand the like what the objective was.
I wanna learn more about the registry concept. So, you said that you're aware of two short-term rentals that exist. When I looked it up on the app at our last meeting, that's what I found.
Yeah.
So, do we have any idea how many we expect will end up on this registry? What type of workload that's gonna put on the building department, who doesn't have lots of inspectors to go out and go and look at, everything that goes around, and is that gonna be workable? I'm just curious
I'm certainly sympathetic to that. I mean, last year, I think the planning board sent down a dumpster screening ordinance. and we had a referral from the building commissioner that he didn't have the people to enforce that. But we passed it. I mean, I cannot neglect my constituents' need because the department head is shorthanded. I mean, that would be shirking our responsibility, at least to me.
Do we have, is there any estimate on what number you expect to end up on such a registry or where that will? Because if it does, you mentioned that the concern was that it would actually increase numbers by making people aware that it's an option, things they can do. And I wonder if it won't have the opposite result for your constituents that you're looking for by actually having a proliferation and then creating an ordinance that we can't enforce because we don't have the staff to go and actually do the checks.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that prohibiting it in Residence A zone where it's customarily been like sacred, right, Residence A, starting there prohibition, which these 2 units currently are at. We want to prevent the spread of that in Residence A and then regulate it in other areas of the community. Doing that, and so I think you're not encouraging it. What you're doing is setting up a process that I think will dissuade a lot of people from, they have to show up, you have to pay a
You have
fee,
to register.
there's a background check, right?
Yep.
You have to have liability insurance,
Yep.
you have to be inspected by health department, the fire department. So you have to meet the same code as hotels do. So it becomes a cumbersome process.
Last question from you on that. So let's say I still wanna go forward and do it.
Yeah.
Is there a time frame within which all of these inspections are gonna occur, or this could drag on for a year by the time they get all these departments out to do all the checks?
No, I think we do have a time frame in there.
If not, you should.
Let's see.
Once
here
they
we go.
submit the
Yeah.
application.
Safety inspections conducted by the Leominster Fire Department and the operator shall present the Office of Building Commissioner satisfactory evidence that the registered has successfully passed such fire safety inspections within 30 days of registration.
So the homeowner has to present that information?
The person that's
rents.
presenting for it as a rental has to,
So they have to get the city departments to come out within 30 days and check?
that's correct. Yeah. The fire department fire prevention goes out and does inspections for smoke detectors and carbon monoxide. So that's routine. So they have the personnel to do it. So,
Why are we excluding Residence A in particular?
well, because we wouldn't let a hotel in Residence A, right? Zoning prohibits that. So this is basically a hotel operation where, we may, it's addressed here in multifamily housing. I have something here, let's see. Give me a second.
We allow hotels in Residence B.
Pardon me?
We allow hotels in Residence B.
I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not sure.
It's only allowed in 2-family or 3-family dwellings, that's the owner adjacent.
That's owner adjacent, right, but that's a rental property, not a B&B. It's a long-term rental.
Find it.
So if he has the backyard of 31.
A hotel is, I have the book here. A hotel is allowed in commercial. It's allowed in industrial with a site plan approval. Or a special permit, I'm sorry, and an MU1 with a special permit,
Oh, I don't
and MU2.
know, Mr. Angelini, I don't necessarily agree with you that you can liken Airbnb with a hotel because it's a house. Yes, Mr. Bedanza.
Can I just make a limited point? I think what you have to understand about this is how the owners handle this is important. So when you take over a whole house and the owner isn't there, there's nobody to control it. And that's what happens in Residence A. It's not a shared unit, it's the entire structure. And the owner is off-site, the owner's not there, all of the renters or the Airbnb verbal customers are there. And that's what causes the problem. If you're in a shared unit, like Residence B or Residence C, typically there's gonna be an owner on site, or if not, there are gonna be other people living in the apartments that are adjacent. It's more controlled, because it's not just sort of willy-nilly, nobody watching type of thing. And to your point earlier about this could happen in anybody's house, that's true. But it's more likely to happen when you're there for a weekend or a long weekend and you don't care, and you have no ownership interest, and it's not something that happens 365 days a year, and boom, that group of renters is gone. There's no control over them anymore. So that's why this is particularly a problem in Residence A, because there's virtually no oversight, and that's the problem.
So we're not preventing someone who owns a multi-unit apartment from Airbnb one of the apartments then? So they could Airbnb the apartment and the other people are permanent renters and they've got people coming in and out every weekend. We don't wanna prevent that, but we wanna prevent them from renting a whole house for the weekend?
Yeah, basically I have clients that own
That makes sense.
apartment houses in other cities that do this.
But if I'm a tenant, I don't want someone coming in and out every weekend next to me.
It happens
upstairs
all
to
over,
me.
it's happening all over the common.
I
just telling
understand what you're saying, I question why we would do it for one, not the other.
Well, that's the reason. It's because typically there's gonna be somebody on site to
Call
oversee
the
it.
cops.
So I guess maybe I should know, having been on the planning board for almost 30 years, but so there's residence A, there's rural residence, there's residence B. Are all residences in residence B multifamily?
No. No.
So that,
And then you have rural too, which would really be an exasperation of the problem.
Well, I mean, obviously, if,
Yeah.
we need to start somewhere.
I agree.
So my position would be,
Yeah.
if we find out, and that's a great point, if we find out that in 3 families
Right.
that are renting out 1 floor to B&B, if that becomes an issue, then we can certainly modify, we can amend the ordinance to address that. But I think, this confused enough people. So if I had had a provision for.
Figure the whole thing out. No, I think it's great. I think it's a great basis.
100% for putting guardrails around this. Because right now, we have no idea. We know of 2 that are on Airbnb. We don't know of any that may or may not be on the other platforms, the RVO or whatever. So the first thing we need to do is know what we have in this town. And we do that by making them register, right? So we can monitor them.
Correct. And ensure they're safe for the tenants too.
Yeah. Whether we restrict them in one area versus another.
well, I'm gonna open it up to the audience, and I know, I'm gonna start with some of the department heads, Ms. Frida. So, Mr. Nile, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so the building code also comes into play, and an Airbnb is the same thing as a motel. And hotels and motels are not allowed in residential districts. I just recently found out about this one down on West Street, and we're gonna shut it down. And because they are not allowed in Leominster, if you wanna open an Airbnb, you're gonna have to put sprinklers in your house, you're gonna have to have emergency lights, exit signs, you're gonna have to have panic hardware on your doors. You're gonna have to turn your house into a motel if you wanna use it as a motel. And it doesn't matter what zone you're in, they are not allowed in Leominster. So I don't know why we're gonna create a whole bunch of regulations to allow them to be here, because everybody's saying they don't want them here, but they're not allowed here. So I'm a little confused myself. Why are we making regulations to allow people to do stuff that zoning says you can't do and the building code says you can't do?
So I'm curious.
So I'll let Mr. Weiser ask the question, then I'll get back to you, Mr.
I'm just
Angelini.
curious, so obviously if it's not allowed already, there's no reason to regulate it, but the police didn't know it wasn't allowed? And that's why they've been addressing it differently?
Well, the police don't enforce building code or zoning.
But the police didn't know it wasn't allowed, therefore no one referred it to you, just found out?
I just found out about it approximately a week and a half ago.
Well, then we have a real communication problem
Yeah.
in that regard, yeah. That's good to know. Yeah, I'm sorry, Councilor.
Mr. Angelini, you were going to respond?
Well, I just, again, the referral I received from the building commissioner initially, didn't mention that. So I'm a bit confused as to why enforcement orders weren't issued of violation notices against the 2 that are operating now, because it's going on every weekend.
And I
So-
can tell you on the addresses if you want to.
Yeah,
It's
so,
not
we can't have the attitude that this is already against the law, but we're not enforcing it, because that's not gonna control it, you know? So I don't see any harm in establishing a registry and having protocols in place for people who seek to do it properly. And then there's no question about what the penalties are. And it's my understanding that we may even have a code enforcement person here in the city of Leominster before too long. So the burden of for the building commissioner will be relieved. And so, you know.
Excuse me, that person cannot enforce zoning at all, because it's not a building inspector. So he can't enforce the zoning, he can't, and I don't know if he can enforce the general bylaws, but that person was supposed to be in my department, and we said we don't want him, because what good is it to have another person in my department if they can't enforce the
They're
rules?
doing it in Quincy, so you might wanna give them a call and tell them they're doing it all wrong.
They probably are.
You know, so,
Before, Mr. Bedanza, I'll get back to you, but Ms. Frieda's been patiently waiting.
I wasn't gonna speak tonight, thank you, because we're in the middle of a public hearing. So, by my understanding is that we're not supposed to be giving any opinion until we get all the information in for the public hearing. You do enough of them, you probably know that as well. But I have a concern, because, could you give me the date of the police letter that you have?
February
February 2nd.
And I just wanna
Alright,
clarify,
I'd
this
just like
this
to
isn't a
read
public
what-
hearing.
this is a public
This was just communication from the city council, it's not a hearing.
Exactly, that's why
Oh,
I'm
for us,
surprised
right,
that
right.
For us, yeah.
there are even requests from
Right.
department heads
Right.
when you're just getting a referral.
This is just a this is a recommendation to you, which
Right.
I always think of is
Well, I just, for the
funny
record,
because you guys
I
can
just
vote
wanna,
however you want.
I just wanna read, this is December 14th. This is what the city council, legal affairs committee, asked the police department to refer, for referrals. And it was, the Leominster Police Department is entirely in favor of this petition. I have heard from other chiefs in the Commonwealth who had terrible experiences with Airbnb residences in their residential areas. I'm glad the Leominster City Council is taking on this issue, tackling this issue before we start having problems that affect our good residents. After reading the petition, the proper checks and balances will be in place for the type of residences in the appropriate zone area. So I'm a little confused that from
Can I
this
clear
letter,
how I, you know, I'm sorry for interrupting too. I think he's saying here, he's totally against it, he doesn't want them to begin with, and neither does the police
Yeah, but
department,
she's
but
reading-
He's
if
saying he's.
you're reading the one
But-
before saying, if you guys, he thinks it's great that you got regulation around it, I think it's like
but
two
what
different things.
what I'm talking about, I'm going back to what Carol's comments
Yeah.
were about, how do we know, where's
Right.
all the complaints coming from all of a
Right.
sudden?
Right.
And where is the
Right.
Boston knowledge of people coming from outside, where is this all coming from December to February?
Mm.
I mean, there's a little bit of a difference here, and again, I'm not forming an opinion because I wanna listen to everything at the rest of our public hearing.
Yeah.
But I do know there's a couple of people that have contacted me, just so that you know, that have been doing this for 7 or 8 years
Oh, I bet.
in a small, single-family home.
Yeah.
That are renting a room when they go visit their children at Fitchburg State College, because the DoubleTree is filled, and it costs them $399 if they wanna rent a room
Yeah.
to go see their children. You know, and I think we're gonna get more of those comments as people, continue to respond to us. But I think, you know, I would just ask you to look closely at it, because I think we have a lot of differences of opinion. The Realtor Board, I think, is gonna weigh in on it as well. There are private property issues involved. So there's a lot of, differences, and I think the building inspector just addressed a couple of them in terms of, you know, his authority. So, you know, I would just ask that you look at it very carefully before you opine for the rest of our public hearing. I mean, it's unusual that we're in the middle of a public hearing and you're hearing, you know, from the petitioner and the legal affairs chair.
Well, we asked
Right,
Mr.
I
Angelini,
understand
we
that.
invited him,
Right,
so
I
we could
get it.
understand it.
Okay, thank you.
it's my understanding, you also have a legal opinion from the city solicitor that said this is not a public hearing, therefore this is fine, we're not violating any.
No, that's correct, this is not because it's not a change in the zoning ordinance. Mr. Bedanza.
I just have a question for the building inspector, if he's willing to answer Are you suggesting that if I own a single family house, I can't lease it to somebody?
Yes, you can.
Can I lease it for a month?
Now we're running into issues. There's no timelines, but there's a difference between an Airbnb and short-term or long-term leasing.
So I can lease it for a year,
I don't know what the limits are on that.
but right now, if I lease my house to somebody for a year and you knew about it, would you stop that?
I would not. But if
How about if
you,
it was for a month?
I'm not sure. Nobody's proposed that to me.
And suppose I leased it to somebody for 5 days, would you stop that?
If I found out about it, I would try to do something about it, because now you're trying to turn your house into a hotel.
Well, I think we're not gonna debate the law with you,
Yeah.
but I don't think you have any power to stop anybody from leasing their house. That's my opinion as an attorney, period. So,
And you're saying a one day lease could be a legal lease.
I don't think that's my opinion, whatever the issue is here before us, with respect to this particular issue, on that particular point, I don't think you can stop somebody from doing that.
Thank you. This is to address a point I think that you raised earlier. There are a lot of residents big. I mean, we're talking, so there's two parts to this as I look at it. One of them is precluding it from ever being done in Residence A. That's where we've had the problems. I know the folks that came to the meeting and understand they had some very serious problems that were very disturbing. The second part of it is, how to regulate it in those areas outside of Residence A. I have a real problem with that at this point, and I'm listening and I'm looking for, some thoughts on that, because there are plenty of single-family homes in Residence B. There's a lot of that down on French Hill, like some of the, I have the zoning map in front of me. And there are a lot of single-family homes, so you could have a single-family home next to a triple decker or a double, a two-family duplex or whatever. And I personally at this, I think we need to think more about it, because precluding it in Residence A only and then regulating it in other areas of the city, that's kind of it's a fine line that I have real trouble with, I guess, getting to at this point.
Yeah, that's what I'm questioning, and I don't
Do it across the board, but I like the regulations, the registration piece, and there's a lot of good parts here.
You do it across the board where you're registering,
Well, you're not banning it, you're just making people conform to something.
Well, no, if I understand the proposal right, we're saying it's completely banned in Residence A.
Yeah.
And so if you're saying, do that everywhere, then
Well, do it in
you
all.
register.
well, it's either don't,
Just ban period.
let's not do it, which I think might be, I think is the building inspector's point, it's not addressed in the ordinance at all now. Or if we're going to put it in place, I think it should be,
Broad.
I think every residential zone should be treated the same.
I question whether we can ban it anywhere.
Yeah, I
Do
know.
we know of any other communities who have successfully banned short-term rental units?
Saying yes.
Quincy,
They banned it.
in the residence
You
A.
can't have it
Or
in
just
the-
to be.
In residence A.
And so
Maybe
someone
that's the piece.
boards up the building.
City council approved it, it's an ordinance on their books, and it's,
Really good.
so
So
again,
back to Mr. Badin's
Yeah, just a
point.
second, John. Yeah.
I'm curious, since I understand this originally came from Quincy. Do we have any input from Quincy with their success was? Or how they did this, how they implemented the program? And why they did it?
well, I mean, obviously, they.
I know one of the counselors in Quincy that we can
Sure.
maybe get some info from,
Sure,
that would help.
absolutely.
So
Quincy's ordinance, and they had to have a reason for it. And they better have success for it. Or no success, or what kind of problems did they have? Primary or whatever.
If we're gonna ban them in A, why not ban it in the city?
We're not
And
banning
then,
we're
how are we gonna
saying
ban
this
them?
is how
Can we
you play it.
legally ban them in the city?
Or are they already banned? Right. inspectors.
Right. With a lack of a regulation, there is no regulation.
Correct. So Peter, what you're saying is if I wanna go on to the short-term rental registry, I have to have sprinklers, maybe a fire escape, the second floor.
ADA compliance.
It's a house.
Yes, you're gonna have to have.
Even if it's a house, Peter,
Yes, cause you're trying to turn it into a motel. You're renting out your entire house. Now, we have the ability right now to do the bed and breakfast. So you can rent a room out, but you're living in the house, you're in the house. So you can rent out a room, we don't have problems with the bed and breakfast because the homeowners are there.
But I could lease the whole property without issue.
With an Airbnb, you're renting the whole property.
I understand.
And what happens is, from my TV set, and it's a big TV, there's always something on there about somebody rented an Airbnb for a graduation party and 300 people show up and they destroy the
How
neighborhood.
is it different from a
Now, I
lease?
think that's what's being complained about right now, is that the two of them in the city, or at least one of them, they're having parties with 30 cars parked on the front lawn, and that's not because there's no regulations. They're not supposed to be there. They're breaking the law by even doing that. And I just recently found out, so we're gonna send them letters, telling them they can't rent out their property.
Just help me understand from a legal perspective, what's the difference? If I'm leasing, it's okay, but if I'm renting it short term, it's not?
I am not a lawyer, so I don't know that difference. What I do know is that
But you're gonna
Publix-
enforce it, you're saying you'll
Publix-
enforce it against an Airbnb, but not against a lease.
I didn't say I wouldn't enforce it against the lease. I said short-term rentals is a motel, and if you're treating your house as a motel, you have to turn your house into a motel. And it's not allowed by zoning to turn your house into a motel.
But there's no definition of short term, so
Not yet.
you're not sure how to,
So you can solve this whole problem by coming up with a definition.
And
so
that's
maybe
part of
that's really.
this.
Well, I understand, but I don't know if we can pick and choose which zoned area we can. And I don't know, I don't know where you're at in your, I mean, we're just making a recommendation. And I don't even know if this would be a matter that would ever come before us, because it's not really,
We're not a policing authority.
we're not, I mean, no one's gonna come with us with a site plan for, to take their 3-bedroom colonial and turn it into a,
Well, they put in sprinklers.
so,
Change of use of a property needs special permit from the planning board, site plan, sorry.
well,
So they
I
have,
don't
they
know
do
if we're
have,
really
they
changing
do have
the
to come in
use.
front of you. Yeah, if they're going from motel, house to motel.
well, I don't
Yeah,
know, but I don't know,
that's the legal.
I don't know, I'm gonna, we have a few other things on our agenda, I don't know if we've exhausted our debate here tonight, but Mr. Angelini, do you have anything else?
I just wanna say, I think I made history this evening because this is the first time a petitioner has been asked to come and explain a petition before the planning board. And I went back quite a few years.
Well,
So thank
there's
you
a
for
few
being part
others,
of it.
But yeah, no, there's.
That just
some
means we
others,
were
but-
confused.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Does- I know, does anyone have, before
How do we make it the best we can make it?
I don't know what we're gonna, but my question is, what's the posture of this hearing at the city council? I mean, we're just making you guys are gonna vote the way you're gonna vote,
It's
so
a continued public hearing, so if
when's it continue to?
provide a normal.
Are you just waiting for us? Is this why? Have you is your public hearing open
Yes, it is,
and it was continued?
Waiting for our recommendation or other things as
Peter's
well?
presentation tonight.
Okay,
Oh,
You know,
the presentation tonight, okay.
alright. Alright, well, this isn't even, again, this was just under communication, so. Does anyone else have anything else before I move on to the next? Or how does that, well, I can't, how does anyone wanna proceed?
I have no idea.
No idea.
Do we have a response? Do we have a recommendation at this point? Do we need more?
I think,
We just got the information we needed to figure out what was going on. I think we need
I'm still not sure I know.
you have to look at it inclusive to the whole city, not just one zone, I would think.
I agree with that, but I still wanna know whether the ordinance it's probably.
I think the regulation
Well,
would be a
I
good
mean, I would
regulation.
like, cause that, to be, like, now that Mr. Angelini has explained it, now I would like to think about it a little bit.
I'd also like to learn more about whatever rules or laws are on the books that require. If
How we're
that's,
defining motel.
if that's the case, if we have some way to bar them now.
Right.
I'd like to see that.
This is gonna, I'm sure there's more than two. Not as many as you'd find in Miami, but.
Well, and that's,
And I've, I don't,
We know
Airbnb, to qualify with them, from what I understand, I don't know if this is true or not either. There's a certain set of regulations that they have to follow. They have to provide certain things, they have to have fire extinguishers, they have to do certain, I don't think they have to sprinkler their home.
If they have to put sprinklers in, you're not gonna go.
Nobody's
to the
gonna do it.
It's gonna be
Well,
prohibitively
I got a
expensive.
sprinkler in my front yard, and just take the hose and put it in
There you go.
But, no, but, the community, there's a series or, of parameters that you have to meet to get put onto the registry to begin with. And when you go to those places, I went to one in upstate New York at the end of September, it was a single family home, which was their version of Residence A, out in rural New York. And, that home had to be equipped with certain things. I mean, the lots or the sprinkling, were different, but they had all the fire protection stuff, and there were a lot of other things that they provided. And I'm wondering, does Airbnb have a list of stuff that's required to register with them? I'm not saying people are gonna, do they inspect as well? Who knows? I'm gonna talk to the city council at Quincy too, just to see what's going on there, and to see what happened with excluding the other zones, so we have information on that too.
So would the board like to
Can't hurt.
request further time to do more research?
Yeah, you guys can give us a little time on this, we'd appreciate it. You got a couple weeks?
I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment about that.
well,
Okay.
so our next meeting is what, March 4th?
March,
No, because it's President's.
March 4th.
So why don't we put it under communications for March 4th? The city council can do what they want, we can have they may have this resolved before then, so I mean, we can schedule it for March 4th and they,
So would the request be to allow further time for the board to do further research?
To provide feedback, they're looking for our feedback, right?
Yes.
Recommendation.
I'm not sure what research would be.
well, I think
I'd like to talk.
and I'd just like to review a few things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's another thing I want to say, we keep using the term Airbnb, but that's a name of a company that
Right.
puts
Rentals, listings.
short-term rentals
Right.
on their site, just like the RBO, so it's really a short-term rental.
Airbnb shows us two, there could be more, we have no idea how many are in this town.
I'm sure people have been doing it for years. I haven't seen it, but.
Alright, so I don't know, I'm March 4th,
Yes.
is that, well,
But when I
it'll be
write my
under
letter to
communications.
Caitlin, I'm just gonna say the board requests further time for consideration.
Yes. And then we can put it on for
And
March.
we'll review it on March 4th.
Because if I can provide you guys a contact, that would be a good thing, somebody gets already gone through it.
We have only got one of those,
There's only one now.
at least for
Alright,
next weekend. Rest are sold.
Okay, so I'm moving on to the next
Did you
section
wanna
of the.
vote on
We
that
do a motion.
recommendation?
So motion to
Council, thank you.
continue to March 4th, all, do I have a motion?
What time?
It's a under
It's a
communications.
communication.
So moved.
Yeah, second.
Motion made second to continue to March 4th, all those in favor, roll call vote.
Patrick Perla, excused. Paul Weiser.
Yes.
Sal Chakoti.
Yes.
John Souza.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Tom
Peter.
Kergnen, excused. Jason Parre.
Yes.
Dean Valier.
Yes.
Carol Vittorioso.
Yes. Okay, 6.2 modification to site plan application at 135 Commercial Road,
I
Home
should have put you on
Depot.
first.
I know.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes, well,
Good evening,
Hello.
Hi.
Uh,
Time.
my name's Maureen Tott. I am the store manager for the Home Depot in Leominster. And we are here, I think we've come here, I think this is our third year, asking for 44 extra spaces so we can expand on our spring selling space. So that's basically,
Okay, we haven't had
It's
any
the same
issues?
We haven't had any issues, it's the same request as the last 2 years.
Fire
Okay.
lane, right?
Yep.
Fire lane and, yeah, we've been, no, it's been working out fine. It's been working out
Alright, great. So, but we have two votes, one to determine if this is a minor modification, and if so, then we vote on that.
We're losing our delegates.
Make a motion to approve this as a minor modification.
Seconded.
Motion made and second. All those in favor, roll call vote.
Patrick Perla, excused. Paul
We still have
Weiser,
a quorum.
excused. Sal Chaconi.
Yes.
John Souza.
Yes.
Tom Kergnen, excused. Jason Parre.
Yes.
Dean Valier.
Yes.
Carol Vittorioso.
Yes.
thank you.
And do I have a motion?
A motion
To approve it.
to approve the temporary modification.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor, roll call vote.
Patrick Perla, excused. Paul Weiser, excused. Sal Chaconi.
Yes.
John Souza.
Yes.
Tom Kergnen, excused. Jason Parre.
Yes.
Dean Valier.
Yes.
Carol Vittorioso.
Yes. Okay, good
Thank you.
luck. Troy, thanks for your
Appreciate it.
patience.
Thank
you.
Thank you again.
Home Depot is just looking for their usual thing.
No, that's easy.
6.3 modification of site plan application for 236 Lancaster Street. Planning board to make determination on minor or major modification and vote accordingly.
Come on up.
We only let one of those in a night, so.
Wow, I'm not gonna be Airbnb-ing it, I can tell you that.
Not yet.
My name is Jim Whitney, we own, it's my daughter Nicole, we own a piece of property at 236 Lancaster Street, the old industrial hardware.
Yes.
Been out of this building. We're gonna change the use from commercial, whatever Bill was using it as, to education.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Leominster High School's gonna put a couple programs in there. The question was whether it required site plan approval. We're asking, I don't think it does, it's an existing building, so there is a way that the planning board can waive it, because it's an existing building.
Did we
And that's what we're
already
asking.
approve the site plan for his
What
But
was,
that was totally different.
It was,
He
total
had,
use.
I had
know, it
another
was
building
everywhere.
going up on it,
I
and
know.
it was shared, this is basically, we're using the existing
existing
building
building.
that was there,
Yep.
and the existing size of the parking that was there, was cleaned up, and we took it over from that point.
so which one is the, I
That's
just,
the one right on the corner of
Johnson.
Johnson
Right after
Street.
St. Anne's Church, and before you get to.
oh, the
Hackney
one
Ave,
that's
the one
been,
that's been
been like that
ongoing
forever.
for
That's it.
10 years. Yeah.
So there are
Bill
a
just
lot-
couldn't finish it off,
No, well, and then the guy that bought it.
that's what I'm talking about,
Oh,
Bill,
the
he's
new
a build
build, the new
he's a
build,
build
the new
too.
build.
There are a
Alright.
lot of questions from department heads about parking.
But
Parking, there's a ton of
well,
parking.
there is,
Well, there's a
Well, there's
question
gonna be a
about,
school,
Well,
so
there's
they're
part-
concerned about queuing
School
for pickup
buses,
and drop off
parents.
and school buses.
There was a
There's,
comment.
there's questions from some people that I can't quite understand, but let's go through each one, the assessor's office kinda got me.
And the police is the big one, right?
Yeah, so
No plan regarding design, pickup and drop off locations, school bus parking, staging.
there's only gonna be 2 full-size school buses at drop-off and pickup. So there's plenty of room for both school buses in the parking area.
It's not parent pickup or,
No, everything loads from the back of the building.
Yep.
There's no loading from Lancaster Street or Viscoid Ave,
or
Johnson Street.
Johnson, yeah.
There's no door on
And so
Johnson
there'll be
Street.
signage on Lancaster and Johnson that there's no pickup, no park, no standing.
Whatever the city wants to do, if they wanna put, that's up to them to pass an ordinance to put whatever they like. But there's no reason for them to park on or stop on Lancaster or Johnson at all. There's plenty of room inside, there's 54 spots we've given, there's 37 required.
Does this lot have frontage on, what is it, Wheeler, what's the next?
No, that's another lot.
No, that's-
Yeah,
We
the
do
lot
own
next
it.
door.
We do own it, but it's not part of this application.
So the police also asked if you're
So
gonna
it's
put
one way
school
in, one
zone,
way out?
school zone signals.
Yeah, it can be. Could be one way in, one way out, or there's plenty of room to pull on, back out, turn around and go out.
Yeah, we weren't sure about the school zone signals, if that's
Yeah, I don't
some,
know who takes care of that. The
It's a-
school has to
In order to put a sign on the side of the road, they're gonna have to go through the city council, I would guess, to get signs approved.
How does that? Carol, do you know how that works? If we have to put school zone
How many,
signals.
what is that?
I don't know why there wouldn't be school zone signs there now, since
I
it's
think
a
it's the
school up
same
the street.
areas, same
Right next
areas,
door,
they
right?
have a signal there as well.
I don't know.
Lancaster School.
Lancaster
No,
Street
how many,
School
how
is
much
2 doors
parking
down.
is in there?
54 spots.
54 spots, so how many
Actually,
employees?
It's 37
I
required.
believe it says on
Yeah,
the
it's on
plan
the-
how
I
many
just-
employees there are.
Yeah, it's on the plan.
Yeah, it's 1 per 8 students and 1 per faculty, right?
So
Yeah.
we're gonna not worry about the police comments
And you got
about the
54.
pick up and drop off the school zone. Yeah, I guess counselors,
So, yeah,
might know about
Yeah,
that.
the numbers are good.
Well, what?
Who's responsible to put school zone signs?
The
Is that,
signs,
is that the signals, is that the applicant or
if
is that the
it's,
city?
if there's a fine, attributed to the sign, then the city council's gotta, has to approve it. If
So
it's
it's
just
not
a
an
regular
application.
sign that doesn't require a fine or police, stopping someone, then it's just DPW.
So we're not concerned with the police comments.
I'm not, because I know.
Board of Health asked, are you gonna serve lunch in the school cafe?
They
Um,
prepared meals.
so they're preparing them elsewhere, they'll prepare them at the high school,
Right.
and then they'll bring them to, they'll have the warming trays there, and then they'll serve them to the students there.
They serve us to sell. We try.
Yeah, there's people that take care of the meals up there.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good company compared to when we went there.
I know it,
And the assessor lists whether fire trucks could
So
enter
much
or
for
anything?
Yeah, it was a little bit, that was a little bit interesting to me that the assessor's office,
It is a weird comment for the
I
assessor.
would think that they should be answering whether there's back taxes or something on the property, but.
But can a fire truck enter?
Yes.
Well, fire
Since
has
it's the
no
fire
issue,
business.
and
Yeah,
fire's
right.
asking about snow storage, but snow storage was snow removal must have been addressed
With the old.
with the old plan.
And there's
But there's
plenty.
there's
And you
17
have
extra
that-
parking spots.
And you have that other
And
lot.
conservation
And
wants to
it's
know
different.
stormwater runoff.
Yeah.
There's no, we're not within a wetlands, within 100 feet of a wetland, so I mean, we can talk to Nick. But the
It says
existing
there's
drainage,
possible wetland off to the southeast corner.
right, but it's nothing that's,
Wouldn't this
it's
have
not
been
within 100
addressed,
feet.
wouldn't that have been addressed the last time?
Snow storage?
But there would
No,
have been,
snow storage and
Stormwater runoff.
In the States?
conservation, cause it's,
Oh, yeah.
it's just the
There's
use.
little conservation.
right, but Carol, that use, that would have been, if they put the other building up that was gonna go on the other lot and the parking lot was gonna expand to twice the size. I think it was approved for like 100 and something spots.
Yeah.
We're not looking to do that,
Okay,
Eventually, but
no, no.
not now.
okay.
I think it's a.
Great idea. Gotta do something with that
I'm
building.
gonna say it's a minor
I think
modification.
so too, and you also have to remember that schools and religious buildings are exempt from zoning as well. So that's another,
So I
that's
make
another
the
point.
motion that this is a minor modification just based on use. That's it.
Seconded.
Motion made, second. All those in favor, roll call vote.
Patrick Perla, excuse, Paul Weiser.
Yes.
Sal Chacone.
Yes.
John Souza.
Yes.
Tom Kerrigan, excuse, Jason Parre.
Yes.
Jean Valier.
Yes.
Robert Torioso.
Yes.
That's great.
And then do we have we need
Name is
approval.
spelled on it. Oh, I recommend approval.
Oh, approval of what?
Well,
I think it's just a
Well,
we made it, we considered it a minor
Minor
modification,
modification,
now we have to
approve
approve the minor
okay,
modification.
so I make a motion to approve the minor modification.
Fine, second.
Motion made and second, all those in favor?
Patrick Perla, excuse, Paul Weiser.
Yes.
Sal Chacone.
Yes.
John Souza.
Yes.
Tom Kerrigan, excuse, Jason Parre.
It's a
Jean
good project.
Valier.
Yes.
Robert Torioso.
Yes,
Thank you.
alright, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good luck.
with that. I wanna try the food.
Alright.
You deliver
Want a
that?
TV dinner? 6.4, request for lot release, 38 Trolley Lane, Lot 5, Railroad Crossing definitive subdivision plan.
Alright, now, I'm getting real
Okay.
touchy on these.
We got a request from an attorney that represents a client who's trying to close on the house, that this lot was never released. The road is built, the house is already built, the whole neighborhood's built, it's a private way.
And this house, is this the first time this house is being sold?
since 1993.
Well,
Since it was built.
it's the first
4
time
years
someone's
ago.
had an issue with it. Subdivision dates back to May 3rd, 1993.
The lot is a pork chop lot, the house sits behind another one, looks like it fell through the cracks somehow.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with
Oh, they
this.
allow them.
No, there's another one that
Kristen actually did.
Yeah, there was one in 2018 that was lot 4, and this is lot 5. And the board released lot 4.
I would make a motion to.
Wait, are there any outstanding issues or outstanding monies owed by the
No.
contractor?
No, everything's done.
Subdivision's 30 years old.
And it's,
I know it
and it's
is.
built.
We don't have any-
Well,
We can
right,
look
right.
to see though, to
The
see that.
homeowner wants to sell it,
It's done.
And he can't sell it because he can't,
it's got a buyer,
can't
it
pass the
can't,
paperwork.
I make a motion to release the loan.
second,
Motion made and second to release the lot. All those in favor, roll call vote.
Patrick Pertwell, excuse. Paul Weiser.
Yes.
Sal Chaconi.
Conditional approval based on no money is owed to the city.
Sal Chaconi.
So,
That's it, that's.
So that's a no?
well, you're making a condition too late, he,
Oh, well, that's why I was asking the question. I
they've
mean,
already done the, Stephanie said they
yeah,
already
well, I
looked into
guess
that.
it's the support person that's stuck in there now. Is that the builder?
Can you let the poor person sell the house?
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Sal,
no,
I
it's
said,
Conditional,
Sal, remember statute of limitations?
yes, I say yes.
I went to the GIS and I
John
spoke.
Souza.
John,
John
yes, he said
Souza.
yes.
Okay. Tom Kerrigan, excuse. Jason Parre.
Yeah, this thing was approved a long time ago.
Yeah.
Dean Valier.
Yes.
Carol Petrosa.
Yes.
Okay, before we move, I'm gonna need everyone to sign this on this
Sure.
line right here. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't need everybody, but one,
Okay.
2, 3, 4. I've got 5 of you here.
All right.
Sign it.
You have to
And you do
notarize
need
it.
everybody.
Oh, notarize this
Yeah.
decision, yes.
All right, while we're doing that, can we
We
move on
notary.
to director's report 7.1?
Okay.
And 7.1.1, annual report.
Okay, I finished my annual report. I'm not gonna read it, but it's in your packet, and if
Very
anybody has
thorough.
any questions, you can see me during business hours and we can go over it.
That's good.
Awesome.
Board did a good job. We had a lot of projects and a lot of applications.
Thanks, Jason, thank you.
Thank you.
I want that pen back.
670 Central Street, the use approved. We just want to get it on record what this is approved for. Because the applicant is now coming forward to city staff and asking to have a class 2 dealership license. So we wanna confirm exactly what they were approved
Oh,
for
yeah.
before. And I have the minutes of the meeting in your packet, so you can kind of read what was approved and what wasn't approved.
This is the new status.
Yeah, so they
Oh,
told
so
us they
Mr.
weren't
Souza
going to sell
clarified that-
cars and now they wanna sell
All right,
cars.
this is 670, which is
Yeah,
next to this is next to the Litchfield Street.
Is that the new building that just went
I-
down?
Who knows, 670.
Building, you did a good job.
Yeah, but we,
On the other
we
side
wanna
of
make
it?
sure, don't we wanna make sure on these that
Yeah.
they've gone to the licensing board and have have
They have to go to the planning board first to do a change of use.
change of use, it's only that they're gonna
If they
use it
wanna
for what they
do-
use
if
it
they
across the
wanna have
street
a-
from.
If they want a class 2 dealership, that's a change of use. When they came to the board, they said there was gonna be no
Said they're not
storage
gonna
of
store.
vehicles.
Here's the
Right.
language of what they said.
But so shouldn't we send them to the license commission to get a provisional license with number of units that they are approving that they could possibly put there before we put our 2 cents
Yeah,
on it?
this was the guy that wanted to run a trucking thing.
Right,
You know?
he built the building.
And there was,
Right.
wasn't gonna be more than a few cars
Cars,
and
Well-
only had a couple trucks going in and out.
That's right.
And now we're gonna sell cars.
Yeah, John? Yes, John?
This property hasn't gotten their final release yet. Okay, they haven't finished
Their landscaping.
they haven't finished their landscaping. Okay, which was supposed to be done before they get their permits. They didn't do that.
They wrote a letter, they did submit a letter to the building department saying they would complete their landscaping by June 1st.
I wanna know if they got a lot,
But then they're asking for even more, to have,
they got
I
any
think you gotta
auto
go
auction
one
cars
at a time.
going here on carriers, which is just what we wrote an ordinance to prevent. That's,
Well,
didn't we just take care of this?
But I guess my question is, you put this under director's report, are they just like Mr. Whitney just did with 236 Lancaster Street, going to ask if we'd consider this a major or minor modification?
I think it's,
Are they requesting to come back before us?
they're going to have to come back before us because they wanna change the use and site plan requirements trigger that.
Did
Okay.
Mr. Hannigan agree to that?
Mr. Hannigan agreed to it and the applicant agreed to it, we just wanna get it on the record.
Okay.
That they're
That's
gonna
all.
bring us a site plan, and then we can make sure that they've gone to the, we've talked about how we're gonna communicate with the license commission on these things and prevent what's been going on in a lot of these other used car lots.
I communicated with Michelle on this already.
Well, then we need to know if they've applied for that license.
They came to her and she came to me,
Okay,
and because she believes they need site plan and they do.
well, they do need site plan, but how are we to know if we approve a site plan for 50 cars and the license commission gives them 10?
Well, that's his problem.
We got a problem.
Well,
Mr.
then
Hannigan is,
that's an option
Mr.
to
Hannigan,
review.
I talked to Mr. Hannigan who represents the client. He's gonna go to the licensing commission as a courtesy, just to see if they would possibly be issued the license before they spend the money on the site work.
I would do that because, what I'm seeing in our old notes, you got you got carriers again involved. I can show you a place, right now I can take you on a drive and show you 15 carriers parked and about another 100 cars dumped somewhere.
On everybody's lawn.
And this is the same person that was never gonna use across the street and was only gonna have 6 cars on the piece across the street and ended up with 30 cars over it. He never followed the rules that we gave him the first time around.
This,
Nobody's enforcing.
And nobody enforces
this applicant also swore up and down that it was only gonna be
it. That's
Well, what are you looking for?
Well,
two trucks.
Hey,
I
so she
just we want it in
site
the
plan.
minutes, we just want in the meeting minutes that
Yeah,
they
they
were
want it in the
approved,
minutes.
not for vehicle storage.
Right.
And then if they do want that, they have to come back for site plan.
And they say maybe only.
It's just for the record.
Overnight
So that
for a
the
car
record is
carrier,
established.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
That's-
7.1.3 UPWP 2025.
okay, you have a letter in your packet about the UPWP, the Massachusetts Digital Planning Commission is soliciting for these. So, we did it before, and we got a response. We can ask for more projects, so if anybody has anything, you can either tell me now, or you can, email me, and I'll submit it. Okay, and then just a friendly reminder, a lot of you have already done this, but the ethics certification
Yeah, but I
is due.
We did that, I didn't need that.
What's the fifty?
The ethics.
It's every year.
Yeah.
Online state ethics.
Oh, it is? I think it's.
And that's all I had.
Is it every other year you have
I did go to a seminar on digital
Yes,
equity,
I
but
have to do that whole program.
What's that, Elizabeth?
I went to a seminar on digital equity in Boston. And they talked more about implementing the plan, and we don't have a plan yet. So I did find a funding source to help with implementation that I might work with the mayor's office on, but it doesn't come before the board yet.
Okay.
Alright.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You're up.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Motion made, second to adjourn, roll call vote.
Mr. Chacon,
Patrick
man.
Perla, excuse, Paul Weiser,
Yes.
Sal Chaconi,
Yes.
John Souza,
Knows how deep I went. Risk it.
John Souza,
No,
Yeah.
Tom Kerrigan,
Well, you can stay on the phone, that's fine with us.
excuse, Jason Parre,
Yes.
Dean Valier,
Yeah.
Sarah Curtis.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.